reconvene our,
I'll motion to continue the meeting.
second?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, carried and approved. Okay, so Mr. France, sorry for interrupting you, but if you can start over.
This is going to take a minute. It's nice we got a little break. At the organizational meeting at the beginning of last month, a couple of new appointments were made, and those appointments were offered by the mayor, and they were approved unanimously eventually by the end of the meeting. I was not attorney. I could not provide anybody advice. I was asked a couple of questions. I informally said what anything was. At that same meeting, there was an executive session. The executive session was relating to my employment. I am choosing to waive any rights that I have to the privacy regarding my employment. I gave a contract to each of the members of the board at that time that stipulated all of the conditions for my employment. It's 3 pages. Lawyers have to cover their butts. That's what it is. And I have to have a contract in writing from any municipal or other entity, otherwise it's not enforceable and it violates rules of professional ethics. At the next meeting after that, right before the meeting, a couple of board members expressed a desire to go and revisit the appointments. I believe it was the exact phrase that was used. And in fact, Trustee Hughes called me on the phone and said that he probably would prefer that I not be there because I was going to be discussed. Or maybe he said for my own benefit, and I believe he may have meant that sincerely. I do. But I chose to come in case there were legal questions, and in case I was on the hook to be the lawyer I would like to give advice to the board, and the meeting became heated. At that meeting, 3 members of the board voted a couple of different ways, including once to adjourn the meeting, or made a motion to adjourn the meeting, but there was no vote on it. And in the middle of it, there was an expressed desire but no actual motion to try and remove me as attorney or Gary Brecker as code enforcement officer. But there was no actual formal motion on it. That being said, I don't want there to be the slightest appearance of impropriety. I don't want anybody to think that I'm being village attorney just because I said that what the law is. I actually went and researched extensively after that meeting all the rules of professional ethics that pertain to whether or not I should have withdrawn my services. I received an opinion from the New York State Bar Association as to whether or not, if a majority of the board voted in an interest to remove me, should I have removed myself as an attorney. The New York State Bar Association said in an opinion, it's a question of whether or not you have been discharged. And being discharged, magic word, is a decision under state law. So I went to the Attorney General's office, and I received an opinion from the Attorney General's office. Those are both in here, as well as the information I gave them to get the opinion, which is just as important. I didn't need them one way or the other in order to get the answer, and you can check that out for yourselves. And the Attorney General's office said, well, you can be discharged only by the mayor if you're an employee, and you can be discharged by a majority of the board if you're an independent contractor. There is a distinction. And it would take a little while to get into it, and I'm happy to explain the distinction. But basically, every municipality can make their own distinction about who's an independent contractor or employee, and the IRS makes a determination for tax reasons, and different states have rules about that as well. I don't know that there was a specific determination made whether I was an employee or an independent contractor. Fast forward to the county HR meeting that happened, what was that, 2 weeks ago?
April 30th?
April 30th. And we heard from the HR department that there has been a village attorney position, an employee position. Also, because it's been contemplated that I would attend meetings, that I would be for the entire year the attorney, that I would handle unspecified matters that come up throughout time, all of those seem to indicate that I look more like an employee and less like an independent contractor. Independent contractor is typically somebody you bring in for a specific task. They have their own tools, they do it pretty much under their own supervision, they get a set rate, and it's agreed on and done. An employee typically looks more like you have a supervisor, you report to them, they handle things, they provide some of the tools of the job, you work for a term period, usually a year, 2 years, something like that, and there's a set rate, and if you go outside of the duties, there's set duties, and if you go outside of them, how that's paid. And that's what my contract looks more like. That being said, if you wish to make a determination the other way on that, it is your power. Because of all that, I look like an employee, not an independent contractor, so that means that it would be the mayor's job to fire me, not the board's, even though a majority of the board didn't choose to fire me. Now, without appointment and approving the appointment, mayor appoints, board approves the appointment, but that doesn't give the board the power to remove that appointment later. And there's multiple cases on that in state law. I did provide an opinion letter about that at the time, at the April, not the third meeting, the one after that. the first regular meeting where there was the argument
The
about.
13th?
13th, yeah.
If who fires an employee of the village, specifically mayor. But that doesn't mean that the village board doesn't have some input on it, they can't talk to the mayor about it, it just means officially, that's one of the powers under village law of the mayor.
Now, not to
That's
interrupt you,
everything.
but
No, please do,
if
that's the story.
you're an employee, or any employee, you're going off of, is it NICOM or,
It started with NICOM, that's where I
but
began my
we've got
research.
village law that says an employee, if he's the supervisor, the department head will have input as to the hiring or termination of an employee. However, the village board makes all decisions about hiring and termination of all employees.
If that was passed as a local law.
That is in
that
our
could-
employee handbook.
To me,
Then that's a problem, because according to village law, unless the village has passed a law to change that, the state default for village, under village law is that mayor appoints, and you can delegate authority for the mayor to another position like DPW supervisor,
That-
but it still goes back to the mayor, not the board as a whole.
But
And
not according to this.
Right, then that unfortunately is wrong, and if you follow that, it could be overturned by court, and I can show you cases that have said that.
Now, can you prove to
In
us
Meadowbrook,
where,
I think it
not
is.
to cut you off, this is not a legal binding document, this Village Cattaraugus Employee Handbook.
What do you mean by not legally binding document? That unfortunately.
I mean, to me, this is what I was given three weeks
Right,
ago
this-
when I accepted this
Right,
position.
that is
Yep.
what I got.
All
So,
right, so
where, if this isn't what's,
thumbnails,
this is what I had for the,
Sorry.
same thing for DPW super, I mean, any employee, so this is the problem I had. If this is not what we go by, if this is not a legal document, then why was I giving it? That's my problem, and where is the one that we should be giving?
absolutely. Thumbnail sketch for how authorities work. And I apologize, this is not meant to be remedial. But that's at the bottom of the totem pole. You start with the Constitution, federal Constitution. Then you go to the state constitution. Then you go to federal and state law, and village law is one of those laws. And anything below it has to surrender if it's wrong to anything above it. Then you go to local laws, if they're passed, which goes through a process. Notice and comment, 30-day wait period, has to sit on your desks and become right for 7 days, all of this kind of stuff. Then below that are policies. Typically what's in a handbook are policies, or it could be a recording of what previously has been a law. If you can find a law, and if it's in the books where it should be, but laws get lost over time, the village is over 100 years old. It could be that whoever made the book didn't understand what the local law was or what village law was. So it's possible that there are parts of that that are not necessarily in conformance with village law. And if you follow them, you might run astray of village law or the state constitution or federal constitution in different cases, and that's why you have a lawyer around, by the way. To tell you when something in that, probably not what you follow because it's a policy document, but policy documents are excellent. They spell out what the expectations are for people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you do want them, and you want a written record for, so that you keep doing the same thing over and over, and you don't, for example, go back on the water line issue. You want those things in writing, even if they don't necessarily have the force of the local law.
Exactly. So apparently then it sounds to me like we need to draw up something, because to be honest with you, I am not comfortable with the idea of
Absolutely.
having no guidance there. I mean, we're new to this, we don't know, and this is what I'm given. So to me, this says the village board makes all decisions.
Rose, do you have any idea about the provenance of that document, who wrote it up, where it came from?
Well, it was written in July 12th of 2004, so I guess it
It's
would
from
be.
2004, it's from the tenure of the previous clerk,
Okay.
several boards ago.
They may or may not have had legal input in the drafting of the document, which, that's fine.
I mean, it's nothing against you or anything like that, but I'm only kind of guy, I mean, I wanna cover, my six as much as possible, and I think that a lot of us wanna do too, and to me, what are we going by then?
And absolutely, you want a document that at least tells you what's correct. I have not read that yet, I haven't been given it.
This is
But
all
then again,
this is all that I was given, I'm sure this is all that they were given, so I guess that my
This is
beef
what I've
with
been going by, this
is
is
that,
employee
you know,
handbook.
I'm not comfortable with the mayor having complete
Absolute
control.
power.
Nor should the mayor,
Yeah.
but the law does give the mayor certain powers that trustees don't.
And we
So
get
where are we
that.
gonna,
You can use
sorry
your
to cut you off,
investigation.
Jason.
Go ahead.
In any position that we put somebody in, I'm here from this point on, I'm not blaming anything on any past, and I'm moving on, I'm moving from now forward. I want the best person in every position for this village.
Yep.
Not for this board, but for this village. How do we protect people if
Okay,
One
the
guy
mayor
is
sitting
making
as a
copies.
figurehead in that position has complete control of, I can hire somebody and make a group decision to hire, but then one person can remove that? It just-
right, the state law says that there's two parts for somebody, for a new person to be put in, but only one part necessary for removal. So you have control over one of the parts when a new person is picked, that's whether or not you approve the appointment. but state law has been pretty clear that approving the appointment is not the same thing as the power to fire. And that'll be an older memo that I handed to the old board, and I need to.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, I would definitely
Yeah,
see something.
I'm
That
very
was-
hesitant.
Says to me here, an employee of the village of Cattaraugus is a person who regularly works for the village on a wage or salary basis. Employee may include elected, appointed, employment, or volunteer. And I believe in that civil service meeting, they said they used that word elected or appointed or hired kind of interchangeably.
They
For
do,
civil
but there is,
service, yeah.
for
You know.
legal reasons, there are
We just have to have a
distinctions.
standard, I mean, and apparently for a long time, we haven't had one, and moving forward, we got to, or I'm not gonna be comfortable with a lot of things.
I mean, it's the mayor's duty, in my eyes, even in here it spells it out. The mayor's duties are to supervise. And
Supervised
to
typically
run,
means
like
for-
DPW, police department, to have, he's the department head of all those departments. But I would think 6 heads together are better than one, as far as hiring.
Otherwise,
and
why do we
firing.
have a board?
With the
Right.
hiring, sure, but with the firing part, the problem is, what happens if the 6 heads disagree?
Well, that's
Well,
why I
if I
have
have
majority
vote.
vote, that's where the majority vote
Okay,
comes.
so that did happen, and there was a village out east, and it's in the older packet that I handed out, not the actual case, I can get you the case, it's up with the name of it. And it's in the matter of Korea, the guy was, I think he was code enforcement officer, actually, of a village out in eastern New York. And the board said, as a whole, okay, we don't want to make the decision for whether he stays or goes, we will delegate that authority to some person. And then the guy who got fired said to the Supreme Court, that's the lowest trial level of court in New York, it's not the top, we have different namings here in most other states, whatever. The guy said to the judge, hey, they didn't have the power to fire me, so they didn't have the power to delegate that authority to somebody else to fire me. And so my termination wasn't lawful, and he won. Because village law says the power to fire stems from the office of the mayor, unless there's a local law otherwise that overrides village law. And I'm not positive if that's one of the powers that a village could pass in a local law. That would require a bit of research. But you do have the power in appointment, so you can set expectations that are very clear at the beginning. You say, look, here's all the things we want out of them, and they agree to these things, or politically, we're gonna hold the mayor accountable for not looking into it, not keeping documentation, and not picking people correctly.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I just got issues with it, and to be quite honest with you, I got a huge issue right now in the fact that I signed a paper stating I'm gonna go by this. I might as well throw this in the garbage as far as I'm concerned, because you gave me something that has no value, no merit, and you didn't give me something that didn't. So now, who didn't do their job, is what I want to understand, because this is junk. What
Yeah,
you're
it goes
telling me.
back,
It's
it goes
junk.
to 2004. You might want to
But
form a
if
committee.
nothing-
and
if it has
Just
a
like
value,
right here,
it's
just like right here. I guess, you know, and this goes into something that happened from the previous meeting with, was it the last board meeting when you sent out the email and you guys discussed the, stipulations for Corey Gross's employment? Time records. The village board will determine which hourly employees must punch in using the time clock system. Doesn't say the mayor. And that's what I'm saying, again, this is
Salary as well. So therefore, it
employees.
is my,
And that's
correct,
what I
but it
say, you
says
go back to
not
this
salary.
page.
Probably count as
It
supervision as
doesn't
well.
say
in which
anything. The
case-
point of, it says here, employee may include anybody and is a person who regularly works for the village on a wage or salary basis.
but that
So to me,
part on that law that they, or the policy that they put on there is, it clearly states hourly employee. It doesn't just state employee, so therefore, if it said employee, then it would include all, but it says just
I'm
hourly.
not reading that is what I'm saying. I'm reading what it says is wage or salary basis. So I need something to be comfortable with that says it, and I would like to retract my signature on this handbook if I'm not gonna go by it.
I can see why,
Yeah, you just have to sign an oath in office. You don't, if I'm not mistaken under law, have to sign something that says you'll abide by a handbook.
I believe that's.
As an elected official.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard for them to remove you because you didn't sign a handbook, and I'm pretty sure
Well, I
that's
know,
not
I'm saying that we gotta
official
have
under
some.
law.
mean,
I can
otherwise
see
it's-
why if
We
the
have order
board-
or we have anarchy, and that's kind of what this is to me,
I can see why if the old board, when they were button heads with you, if they thought that they were right in the hiring, firing, whatever, I can see where there was a conflict, of ideas, because
Yeah.
if they were going by this handbook, is it right or wrong? I guess what we need to do is find out where this came from.
Yeah, and we need to
Yeah,
draw
but if
something
there's
up
a-
if possible, because there's gotta be guidelines. You know, that's what I'm
If
saying.
there's a
I am
local
not
law,
comfortable sitting
we
here
should
with-
know it though, shouldn't we?
The village law is about, yay thick, and I'm very happy to get any of you a copy or point you handbook is a condensation of that, to make it easy for rules of thumb in order to understand what's going on. It's not going to cover all of the different circumstances that come up, and that clearly was drafted without a very clear understanding of what village law requires. Because the case that I'm talking about is more than 11 years old, and so termination of employee should have already been covered in that correctly, so.
It should, I
The
mean, I guess I
documents
wanna see what
flawed.
village of, what does the village of Cattaraugus go by? Where is our law?
If you do want to look, the NICOM handbook, and Jason probably pointed you to a copy of it, that's great. It's not flawless, but it's very good. And they've got a condensed version that's about 38 pages, and it applies to every village across the state, unless that village is one of the special few types, 5 club charter villages, we're not going to read. Or if there's a local law that has been passed at some point that overrides some of those things.
There's gotta be.
Sometimes you can pass them, sometimes you can't. But that NICOM book is a really great guide. It's
It
not
is.
perfect, but it's a great starting point.
I guess I thought NICOM was like, that's the standard, like OSHA.
Right.
You gotta follow OSHA because that's the bare minimum.
Now,
And then
NICOM is a
you move up to
nonprofit that
cash.
advise mayors and municipal officials on nothing but New York law.
Yeah.
And so they're not the official authority, but unofficially, yeah, most people follow what they say and right, so they're very good.
Am I right, and in reading this handbook, it seems like there's stuff in this handbook that has been taken out of this NICOM book. Isn't,
Oh, probably bits and pieces.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure.
so that's what I'm saying, I'm wondering if they added to it.
And NICOM has been improving their book over time, so if that was made from an 11-year-old NICOM book, well, that may have changed, NICOM might have changed their tune on what they think the current state of the law is. But if you want something to go by, I would strongly recommend the NICOM book, current revision, over an 11-year-old local policy document.
Well, I'd like to have as a revision of this, because I just.
That's not a 1 or 2 hour project, fair warning. That's like
Well,
10
you know,
15.
either is doing what we want. I mean, that's what it kind of feels like right now. Like, feel like I'm kind of like on a sham right now. Like, I'm just sitting here with really no decision on what goes on, and I just don't like that idea.
What do you mean
I don't
with
think
no
that's-
decision to do?
If the position of mayor, okay, can sit there, and he's more than a chairman, and he's got the decision to decide, I don't want this guy. Let's just say, for instance, that you don't make it to a second term, and you appoint somebody to, this position right here, or for whatever. What protects them, if they're doing their job, and the next guy comes in, and for some reason, he just has a beef, like, you know, his sister, you know, got dumped by the guy that's in there, or whatever, who knows what beef there is, you know?
Written contract, then above that,
I would
Civil
never
service,
submit
that-
to a written contract, I'll tell you right now, because to me,
That's what protects people.
that binds a future board to what I want, and I think that is just.
right, and so you wouldn't make a contract that's 20 years, you make one that's a year with a renewal, or 2 years, something like that.
Yeah, like as long as I'm on this board, yeah, I would see putting
Or
somebody
you
in
pick
here.
the end of the contract as the end of the
I
board,
wouldn't
but then
do
they don't have
anything.
the protection, so.
I'll
Where's
tell
the
you right
protection
now, I
come
would
from?
not do anything past my term.
If it's on a word and a handshake, they have only protections that come if they happen to be under civil service, not everybody is.
Well, if you
Or
don't
if they
get
happen to be
you
part of
wouldn't
the
have
collective
that.
bargaining agreement, not everybody is. Or if they're an elected official or public officer, there's only a limited number of those. Secretary, treasurer, board members, and mayor, then you have protections of you can't be removed except unless a Supreme Court justice does it. Everybody else, discretion of the mayor unless there's a contract that protects them, or civil service, or collective bargaining, not everybody has those.
Yeah. There's nothing against nobody in here, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not like saying anything, I'm just saying, I guess I don't like the power that somebody's saying that somebody in that chair has.
And the only way around that, without changing the law, is a contract.
Well, why are we
So,
here? I get that, honestly, I mean, you guys not see where I'm coming from. We as a board are here to make decisions for this village, and who represents this village is a huge part of it. If we set up something here, we get some people in here that's in here, and they're doing great, busting their humps, they're doing everything else, and if for some reason somebody's got beef, and they come in and they're just like, I don't like that guy, keep coming. What prevents that?
The contract, if you have one. If not, not much.
So what you're saying is, okay, let's say for some crazy reason, Mayor Mosier comes in here, and he doesn't like who the old lawyer was, but there was a contract, and he feels that the lawyer, that you as the lawyer, okay, you're from the previous term, aren't doing the right job for the village. And he's like, I don't like it, I think somebody can do better, and I think this, that, and the other.
Then the
But
village
he's
gets-
held to a contract that somebody else put in
No, then
place?
it becomes the village's choice. The contract is not a set of handcuffs. It's a set of what happens if you choose to fire somebody. And the contract will stipulate that. Now, if you read the contract that I have, I don't know if you have a copy in front of you, it said the village can choose to terminate me at its own discretion. And I
The
will only
village
bill up to
being, the village being the mayor.
It turns out, but I didn't know at the time. I put the village on purpose because I didn't know who at the village had the power until I did the research. It was like 10 hours of research, no kidding. And I'm not billing you for that,
What's the
because it was to
population?
know whether or not my own job was.
Yeah. What's the population of the village? I mean, like I said, you're speaking for everybody, and so I have an issue with that, I'm sorry. I don't believe in contracts like that. I mean,
Well,
I guess that's why I
it's-
want board, the board should be here to make fair decisions. So if somebody getting terminated is a board decision, that's about as fair as you can get. That's much more fair than one guy. I'm sorry, the president can't even declare war. So
No, you'll
how
have-
can the mayor declare war on one person or just say, you're not gonna.
I mean,
You
we're
have
not,
to talk to Kathy,
don't
state
take this
senator,
wrong
and
way,
ask her to
we're
see if
not,
she'll change state law.
you know,
But
trying to
we're not
rail
gonna
your
change
cage
that
at
on
all.
that one.
But we just,
Something hinky.
if there was a, say with this, position that we gotta do something with. Say we figure it goes through all of us and we get the best man for the job. He's in there, I'm here till the end of this term or, you know,
Remember
a
which
year.
seat you took over.
A
I'm
year.
not officially
I
the chair, but
think
which
they're all.
person.
They're all 1 year, I
Yeah,
think.
they're all gonna be up in
Yeah.
election
So
next
in a
year.
year,
All three of you.
the three of us could be gone.
Right.
These two are gonna still have to sit here.
For one more year.
Okay, for one more year, but then there's three more people there, they're doing a good job helping, working with these guys. But now, when these two terms are up, we get another mayor that maybe has an axe to grind with somebody in the field. He can do it without,
Right,
Any-
that's the law, they need to understand the position when they sign up for it, bottom line.
I just
Now,
don't,
some positions have other protections, so if you're talking about a DPW employee, they're a member of the union. They also have civil service protections after they've been here long enough, or if they're competitive class, they had to take an exam to get it, it's hard to get rid of them, even if they're a bad employee. But if they're a good employee, it's also hard to get rid of them, so if you really think you picked a good employee, that's great. At the time of an appointment, you get to approve an appointment or not, and you can condition that on things like, here's a contract, we want in this contract that there's some kind of review from the board, and the mayor will agree to that as well. I'm not positive that cuffs the mayor's hands, it might not under village law, but at least puts them on notice and makes them a seat at the table for that in the future, but makes board members a seat at the table. I'm not sure if that's legally enforceable, but you could try it. There's nothing wrong with trying things. Also, you could condition your approval of an appointment on things like, all right, it's for some period of time or not for some period of time. Or if you want certain things in the contract and it says, if you're fired, you get this much or not. So you can, at that point in time is when you can make that kind of decision. And you definitely want to know that before next year or the year after's appointment hearing or the organizational meeting, because clearly that did blindside the last board.
yeah,
So if you have questions about appointments,
well, what I'm saying is
before the meeting is
that
time.
blindsided the last board, okay?
and you don't want to be blindsided.
No, I don't, and I guess that's why you're bringing it to us right now, is, okay, this is legal. How do we know for sure? I need something in my hand. that
Well, there's
says
some
This
rules.
is kosher, and that's what I'm saying, I mean, to me.
Then I encourage you to go and contact NICOM
Yeah, they'll give
and
you an
ask
opinion.
the questions, and they will provide you municipal law, GML, general municipal law, and give you the section and article that it comes from, and there you will have your answer.
Or under village law, let's say VL, section 4-401,
Correct,
4-410.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to start arguing, I'm just
No,
saying.
but if you want the answers, that's the simplest and the most convenient way, and you'll get it immediately. If you speak with Marisa, who I have spoken with, she's the one that pretty much is, I don't know if you guys have spoken with them or not, but Marisa gets back to you the same day with the information, even within an hour.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to have that information, and she can explain it to you that this is how this process works. I mean, because before I took office, I mean, I was on the phone with her for every single day for probably a good half hour, wrapping my hands around the law. And that's the hugest thing to understand, is how the law truly works. And so what Jay is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what Jay is directing you down the road for the answer that you want.
Now, I'm
if
not
there's-
saying don't contact me, if you're willing, a majority of the board decides how to spend money.
Yeah.
It would take a majority of the board to gear up and provide me a new task that I can bill you for. But as a matter of personal courtesy, if any of you don't have my personal contact info, get it. If it's only gonna take a few minutes or 10 or 15 minutes for me to look something up and get you an answer, I will do that. And I'll give you a citation to where it is and my rough idea of what it is without binding the entire board to have to pay me in order to understand what something is under the law. And I'm content to do that. And it would be one of those things that's gratis, that is free, and not charged against the
Yeah.
60 hours in a year that my contract stipulates.
So in regards to
Before I
what
bill above it.
Jay was saying, so for instance, like with a DPW superintendent, is having that as an employee can have a contract, and that they follow by the contract, and this is what they're held by, this is what they can be protected by, so on and so forth. Because just, I guess maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but this is how it is essentially, is that politics is politics, and anytime there's a new administration, typically it's out with the old and in with the new. At some point,
That's part of the powers of, and you want voters to
Exactly.
have that kind of power.
You do, but if somebody's
heads
doing
fall
the
and
right
then
thing and
things
they're the best
change.
guy for the job, they should have some kind of protection that you're just not.
And
Well,
that's
then they need to
Doesn't feel-
look
doesn't-
into civil service or the other option.
Right, if
Well,
they're in a
let's say
position
Chris
that's
has
eligible for
okay,
civil
Hold their
service.
position.
Public Works Superintendent, right here. Here
That
is
one's not
the-
eligible for civil service because they're confidential and privacy and policy position. So they're not protected by civil service.
the
because they're a
Civil Service
super-
Commission releases their work statement of what is expected of them and their
Right.
qualifications.
Now, they are, the civil service board that we met with, said their job is to classify people. They pick, here's a job title, and we put it in one of three categories, one of three bins.
yes.
Non-classified,
Mhm.
classified, exempt. For people who are classified, they are, I'm sorry, competitive.
Competitive.
They're competitive, they go through a civil service protection. They get in through the competitive, they can only go out by following due process. People who are non-competitive are people like lawyers, people that are supervisors, people that have policy considerations, people that help shape laws, things of that nature, and they don't have civil service protections, but the HR department still makes civil service determinations because they get the whole job list of duties and say, which of those three bins is it? And so when we went to the meeting, they were telling us which of the three bins each of the jobs that we were telling them about fits in. And then the third one is exempt, and there are certain positions that are automatically exempt from civil service.
Which would be
That was
all of
probably-
us right up here.
Yeah, elected officials, rows,
But this is, okay,
Treasurer.
this is Public Works Superintendent, it says minimum qualifications, 4 years of experience participating in public works construction or maintenance activities. Special requirement, there's only one, possession of an appropriate New York State driver's license at time of appointment. That's it, that's the only special requirement.
now, at the.
Incumbents may be required after appointment to obtain an operating certificate from the New York State Health Department or Department of Environmental Conservation if responsible for
Water and
operating that.
wastewater.
But he doesn't have to have it at the time of appointment, he doesn't have to have it
Correct.
qualified.
Now, that sheet, here's how a position is created. This could have been 100 years ago, could have been 50 years ago, I'm not sure. I'm looking at the history, but I'm not the historian. When the position's created, the board draws up the list of duties, and they'll say, look, we're only going to approve an appointment subject to these things. And that list gets submitted to the county HR department, and that's when they make the determination of which of the three things it is. And so a new board comes in and says, we need to fill this position, and then the HR department gives you back the list of qualifications that the previous board made. And if you want to change the duties of the position, or you want to create a new position or get rid of an old one, that's when you make up the new list and you give it to the county HR department, and they pick which of those three bins it goes in, then you do the hiring process.
Did we do that in the case of Corey Gross?
I couldn't tell you, I wasn't here at the time.
For what part?
That-
There was an email that was sent out with, extra duty list for him, like such as punching the client talk.
Now, right, now
That's
the
away
thing is,
from us too.
subject, you'll notice, and it'll be subject to supervision of such and such, will be in that list of qualifications, it'll be in there somewhere. He'll be subject to the supervision of the mayor at a minimum by nature of his position and by nature of village law. So the mayor, as his supervisor of supervisors, is allowed to put or put considerations for what he does, like punching a time clock or not. And those should be in writing, and those are to give somebody fair warning for what expectations their job has. But the duties, that's a list of duties of the job. One of them would be to obey whichever elected official is your boss that can fire you.
I don't wanna argue, and I
No,
don't
no,
wanna go on,
absolutely.
I just said, and I'll check in an icon with it, I wanna go on record as saying, it doesn't feel like democracy to me. It's like, almost like, you can help me hire an individual, but as far as whether or not we're gonna keep them, I'm taking away your voice. You know what I mean, I wanna go on record as saying that, I mean, and I guess I
I think-
kinda relate a little more to maybe why there was
Yeah,
some
the previous board was
resignations. around
irritated
it.
about
I think another thing that Wirt and I both share is, and I'm hoping the rest of you guys do, all of us walked into a mess with the superintendent position. I mean, we don't want this to happen again.
No,
We need to get this right.
you know, maybe we need to fix it now. I mean, why does one man have to have so much power?
If you're willing to let
But
the deputy sit for a while, you can
Village
change
law.
the.
exactly, you're talking about
Show
something
me
that was
that's what I'm
created.
trying to say, is don't we have our own village law? We only go by the standard, Cattaraugus itself.
It's
does
not the
have a village
standard.
law.
So,
It's what the
back in the
country-
late 1800s, villages were chartered individually, one at a time by the legislature,
Mhm,
and there are only 5 of those that are still around. Fredonia is one of them.
mhm.
There's a few out east. After that, late 1890s, the state came up with something called the Uniform Village Law. You want to make a new village? Here's a set of laws that you get automatically by becoming a village.
Okay.
And when Cattaraugus was incorporated, it was that where they got a charter and chose to become one under that law. And so that's the bundle of laws that Cattaraugus is carrying around with it. And some of those it can swap out if it wants with local law, and other ones it's bound to keep, either because of municipal home rule and state constitution requirements or others.
And can we do our own?
That's a fascinating question, and if the majority of you want me to look into it, I'm very happy to, but that would definitely go towards the 60 hours, because I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, it sounds like we're being bamboozled here, in my opinion, like, you know. it's-
In what way though? I guess, I think that, I mean,
Like
do
I'm
you
supposed to get
understand?
out my checkbook and pay this man separately to find out what's in the village's best interest? I mean, does anybody else not feel this way? Like I'm being told that if you want me to check into what's right for the village, dig out your wallet. Otherwise, there's, you
No,
know,
I just mean
charge
I'm
it to the
marking
village to squabble over.
I'm
See,
marking
it's
the
gonna
time, I
take-
paid a
take
certain
longer
amount for a
time.
certain amount of research.
He said it, he said to a country for 60
I
hours.
just wanna get to work, and right now, this seat is vacant.
Yeah.
And I wanna put somebody in this that's gonna do right, and hopefully stick around and not be a contested position as much as it is right now. It's horrible what this job right here has done to this village right now. And no matter who we get in here,
Maybe
we're never
it's
gonna
just
move forward.
politics in general.
It is, but what I'm saying is, and we have nothing to go on except for this handbook that.
Well, you have general municipal
you have
law that you have
NICOM.
to follow. I mean,
Yeah, I've got NICOM, and you know what I mean, but what I'm saying, this just seems like a generalization is what I was understanding. I mean, I also have a Village of Cattaraugus employee handbook that was given to me. Why? I might as well just tear it apart, throw it away, it's junk.
That particular one, you probably could tear apart.
Well, we have no other one. That's what I'm getting at. We have no other one to go.
Well,
by.
just
So where?
make it like this didn't even exist. I mean, because it's basically.
That's what I'm getting at.
And
So what do we go by?
because
So I can show up here
NICOM
and
is
sit in whatever seat I want and do whatever.
Well, you can sit in whatever seat you want, actually, unless there was. a-
Yes, I know, what I'm saying is, you know, I mean, I should be able
Some
to
people actually get things about
walk
the
in
seat.
the mayor's
they're in.
office, throw my feet up, because it's like, well, wasn't told what to do. I mean,
So this,
So is,
go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. So is the root of it that you, as Mr. France suggested, would like to find out if we could overwrite that law with our own local?
I think there should be something in place to protect the people that work for this village and Buxton.
In that
Bottom
case,
line.
in that case, then I think we need to have you look into it, and if that's gonna be something that is a.
I would keep track of the time, I'm not billing
documented
above anything I'm
expense.
already being paid. I'm keeping track of that against the work that I said I would already provide you when you.
It's coming out of the
Exactly,
agreement.
he could eventually supersede his contract that we
And
had.
I'm not saying
I guess-
guaranteed we go above 60 hours on billing you. In fact, if it was based on that in the last month, I may have put 60 hours. Not kidding,
I
I
have.
seriously have.
yes.
Ward,
I'm just saying I will keep
I
track.
just
of
don't
I
the time
understand your
I'll get to
concern,
60.
but I'm both an appointed official for the village and an elected official for the town. Come the election in November, I might not have a job with the town anymore.
Well, that's what I'm
She
getting at.
And
If you're doing
at-
your job.
At this last, when Daniel took over, he could have not appointed me. I could be the best clerk in New York State, and he still has that power to not appoint me, and that's something that I realized,
But the thing
being
is,
in this
thing is-
position, that I might not have a job every 2 years.
And you underestimate the institutional inertia. which
But
is
now,
very-
where does that come in?
yeah, but the thing is, Rose, if he didn't wanna reappoint you and he wanted to put somebody else in there, no matter who the mayor is, it would still have to go through the rest of us.
The
Yeah,
board
if
would
you
have
choose
to
to reject
approve
it,
that
yeah.
appointment,
Right.
yes, yes.
I just don't see the purpose of a board.
Because you can choose to reject the appointment and say, we're not gonna approve something.
Right, but we
until
can't
it's
do
the
anything
same
about the
person.
firing
Exactly.
or termination.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so, which termination do you need? A specific one or termination in
You know,
general?
any in general,
Any
I mean,
employee.
you know what I mean? Any
Right,
employee,
that's-
which is
Well, you
everybody.
do have a different power, and that's at the time, so, for him to put somebody new in an appointed position, you do have to approve. And if you say, no, you gotta put the old person in or we don't approve, That's a power you have.
And then nothing gets done.
Nothing did get done for 2 meetings.
I'm not trying to be smart
It's
here,
very
but
true.
you're saying you wanna establish a way to
I'm not
protect
asking
somebody
anything
who's
in
good,
terms of situation, just this.
but at
It's
the
just gonna
same,
be the board to have a voice.
Yeah, you're
across
giving the board a
industry.
voice more than protecting somebody.
You know?
You're putting the
okay,
person's
that's not the way
career
it felt to me, that's all.
in the power of the whole board, including the mayor, that rather than just putting it into one man's hands.
So you'd almost rather see it be like the appointment, okay? Let's operate in reverse. Something's going on with, let's just stick to what's going on, our superintendent. And mayor makes, or would like to, brings up that they'd like to fire that individual. We now need to, as a board, vote on that, I mean,
That's
It's
what
okay.
I
it
think.
would be like the appointment process in reverse.
Well, that's what this
Right.
book that I was
And I'll-
reading says. That's what I'm getting at.
And I'll tell you
Right,
why.
that's all.
And I'll tell you why. One, because that way there's 5 guys or men or women up here that have a say over somebody's career. But 2, rather than him taking all the heat, we're a whole unit here.
Should be.
If somebody
Should be, yeah.
has got a problem with it, they can come to all of us rather than.
Well, and although it's not necessarily the most likely thing, devil's advocate here, if you can replace one person, you can replace 5. You know, if,
That's what elections are for.
you're right.
So I don't understand.
But you're still gonna have 5 people
I'm not disagreeing with
basing
being better.
their opinions on.
I'm
Well,
not,
hold on, in regards to that, in regards to what tried to transpire a couple meetings ago, essentially you had 3 trustees that were constantly fighting whatever kind of change or any kind of progress that was trying to be made. So you can just, I mean, in regards to it all, it seems more, that's just, I guess, where the power of election comes into play, that you're putting people in the right place to make the right decisions for the village. And also, therefore, you're saying then that, yes, the 5 of us have great moral ground and, you know, are thinking in the same line of direction, that we want to make progress and we want to protect our employees that do well. However, though, you have, whether you could say you have just a mayor and a whole board that are completely different, which has happened like in the village, or excuse me, the town of Sardinia, where you had somebody that was trying to do good, but the rest of the board was unwilling to cooperate, and so therefore, any appointment that was made would be shot down, or anything going forward. So you could say it's almost a matter of self-righteousness, saying that, well, my decision is the right one, or and that's for each of us, saying that our decision, our own decision is the most proper and the most logical, and so on and so forth, where you have the general municipal, or you have general law or village law that states this is how the procedure is, and then you have a checks and balance system that, okay, the mayor makes the appointment, and then the trustees must approve, and they can choose to decline as well at that point in time, is how that works. Now, in regards to termination, I guess you could say it could look at if it's unlawful or or if it's wrongful, then that could be considered political suicide for that individual, and I guess that's kind of like the consequence that would be for that elected position and that elected official. I understand what you're stating, but also look at just how, and especially how things have been done in the past, and I understand that wholeheartly. And I think that's why in certain positions, as Jay said, in regards to protection for employees then, specifically that position then, is to have a contract that makes sense and that will also hold both the village, and meaning the village, meaning the board, and the employee, meaning the superintendent, responsible, and hold them, okay, here's what the expectations are, and following such, here's what the guidelines are.
For the length of your term.
Well, you can have, I
The
mean,
length of the contract. You can
length of
change that
contract, I
in
mean, you
the
can have a contract for 5 years and
You
say,
can have it for 5 days.
But now
that's
you're,
considered-
but now
Yeah,
you're
but if
dic-
you-
now you're dictating future,
Yeah, you can't.
future
What
boards
about-
to your policy.
But you're saying you want to protect the employee in case a new
I
board
wanna
comes in and wants
protect
to
the
get
employee,
rid
and
of
if
him.
he's doing his job, he'll be protected.
Going
Okay,
in
so
circles,
what about-
everybody.
what about a
No, right,
contract?
but I'm just saying,
Well, we're trying to make progress.
Hold on.
I'll just tell you right now, I mean, we can move on, I'll I'll never, you know, I don't care if it passes, I'll never agree to a contract.
If you wanna
that
have a
spins
beer and
beyond-
talk about the structure of
What
things, I'm
about-
very happy to. And
I'm
I'll give
just
you-
saying, I'm not trying to
advice
make
on
anybody
what
mad or
to
start a
say.
fire or anything, I'm just saying, I've got issues with the way it handles and the way that, you know, and I got a lot of issues with the fact that I'm given a piece of junk paper and I have no other guidelines to go off, other than, well, go check for yourself.
When I
I've
signed
heard
this, I
enough of it.
realized that this wasn't the ultimate of all decisions.
No,
I
that's
guess
the,
I kinda thought that
that's
was.
sort of the
So I can go
high
out.
school,
What's
here's your job.
What's
See,
Nikon
that was-
It's
what's
better.
Nikon say about me, smoking, marijuana here? I mean, probably tells me not to, right?
Your drug test.
I mean, I'm sorry, the handbook, but what I'm saying is Nikon say that, I mean, it's just, it's.
That's where you can institute,
But this was a
It's-
policy,
it's
that was
moral.
just standard practice that people were given that, so you were given as a matter of course. That could and probably should be changed in time, and that's probably an extra thing you wanna add to the list of all the many, many things that you do wanna change in time.
Well, I would like to, I don't,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean, it's like.
And it's definitely worthy of it.
So here's
Particularly
what-
the two things that you pointed out, which were,
I love how that stands for us, though.
What about,
Reminds us.
now, it's got similarities with a contract that extends beyond your term, but what about a contract that includes stipulations on renewal or not renewing the same contract, okay?
it's called an option.
Yeah, and right.
Most people misunderstand how an option works. It
Well-
gives one side the ability to bind the other to keep the contract going.
Well, that's what it feels like, it's like Bush telling Obama, you know what I mean, you gotta be pro-abortion because I was. That's
Well,
how it feels.
I'm just saying, what if, is that more agreeable? I mean, that, to me, that sounds like a better option. Then again, I've been up far closer to 24 hours than I care to be.
To me, I think the better option, for the sake of the village, is that the 5 board members all have a say in policy.
okay, here's
So
what
far,
I
the
will
board said
encourage
fire.
you to do is tomorrow, I don't know what your schedule is, but to give yourself a half hour, give Marisa a call and go over all that, explain your concerns,
Read the handbook first.
and then
Oh, I
also,
have.
No, the night.
That doesn't exist.
he's talking
I
about
know
the thick,
this one does.
This one.
is that I want you to
Page.
talk with her, explain your concerns, and then she'll be able to explain it to you that this is how the law is, this is how it's followed throughout the whole state, and here's the reasonings why, and here's what you can do in regards to what you feel that you want to have accomplished with protection for employees and decision-making and so on and such. But it's a village or a township or anything, all municipalities are governed almost in a sense as a business where you have your CEO, you have your board of directors, and that's how everything is ran. Now, however, though, the speed of it is not like a business, it's very, very slow.
I get that.
But that's what we are trying to work on, and right now, the biggest thing that we have against us is not having all of the knowledge. Now, I know that, and that's where,
Apparently.
and that's where it is, and I can say that
We're all
myself,
learning, we're all new like in the last 2 months, so.
I mean,
Oh, I
I,
get it.
if I could've gone to, I wish I really could've made it to the training at Nikon, because it would've been amazing.
it
Would have
was.
learned so much, but I mean, before I even started when I was just elected mayor, or excuse me, mayor-elect, excuse me, before I even held office, I went through as much as I possibly could and only got up to 8 chapters and in the NICOM handbook. And it just it explains it in layman terms, which is what you want. It doesn't, it'll read you what the law is and say, okay, in layman's terms, essentially, this is
They
what
work
it means.
very hard on making it understandable, because the law is.
No, I know, I get it.
Complex.
I guess,
Sometimes
really
easy,
dead
sometimes
horse.
that-
I just got a lot of issues with it. I'm not a politician, I just got morals, I know what.
You
You are now, you are now.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
I was not elected and I was appointed by Dan, so you're telling me that because he doesn't like the way it's going right now, he technically has got the right to
No,
fire me?
no, that's not true.
What's the
Only a
difference?
Supreme Court justice.
I'm appointed, I am not elected right now.
Right, but the job that you're sitting.
I'm sitting
is
as
that
an elected,
trustee?
I'm just saying, to me, well, what's the double standard? We should move on.
Different seats to a very different standards.
So-
Well,
Go ahead.
we should move on because we've got someone who'd like to speak and they've been here a very long time. We found that out during the break.
What's that?
Mr. McGlynn is just here briefly.
Yes.
He's not here to observe.
sorry. Go ahead, I'm
Well,
sorry.
hold on, so, Mr. France needs to finish, what you were going on about in regards to your.
I may have been ethically required to withdraw, I spent 10 hours not counting towards the 60, this is not on the village time, to research whether or not there is any chance that I was wrong, because I don't want to do anything unethical. And it turns out, no, I was right. And the advice, either because the previous trustee didn't give all the facts to their attorney, or because their attorney didn't do all of the research, that attorney's advice happens to be incorrect. And I didn't want anybody to think in the future that I'm here only because I'm trying to hoodwink the board. I can make extra copies of that, and without charging the board for any time that I'm here, I am very happy to explain that situation in detail to any of you.
All right, so.
If you want to listen, if you don't, I understand, because nobody wants to talk to a lawyer.
So you are classified then as an employee due to your or as an employee due to the contract.
Because the terms of the contract are I'm here for a year, I have unspecified duties that are going to last for some period of time, that I have a set rate for the year that I'm making,
Yes.
things like that. It looks more like an employee than an independent contractor. If I was brought on only to write one law and then leave, it looks more like an independent contractor, and then I would have been dischargeable by a majority of the board and should have withdrawn my services. And I would have, and that document would have said, I'm resigning, and if you want, you could choose to reappoint me if that were the case.
So included in this is also the original,
A copy of the agreement that I.
the contract that was taken care of, that was discussed, since he opened it up, that was.
If you want to disclose it, you can disclose it to the entire public. I don't have any problems with that. You have to choose a board. If you think there's some confidence in there, then the board needs to protect it.
No, it's just in regards to that, this is the contract that we discussed with Mr. Franz in executive session. That was Tom, myself, and the previous 3 board members, which explains exactly that he's working 60 hours for all that, and how his pay is done, which is broken up monthly. And if he were to work his full time, then how he would be, the money that would be given back to the village, so on and so forth. So I would encourage, not right now obviously, but at your leisure to.
And I didn't want to kill a bunch of trees. If you want, I can email you a digital copy of every one of those things, or I can print them out and give it to you. And because it pertains to my position,
But so that you guys can read this and you can.
I'll need your email. I've seen emails back and forth. Would all 5 of you like to see a digital copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Was that everything with you?
Yes, and I'm very sorry for taking your time with that, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
I just didn't want anybody to think that,
Relatively quick.
didn't want anybody to think I was being unethical.
All right, and yes, sir, what can we do for you?
Need 5 minutes to go.
Okay.
When I moved in for a village, the fire company was paid for by the village. And because it was expensive, we went to a fire district. And now the district generates the funds for the fire company. Within the town, 100% of the residents idly generates trash, yet the village has decided to terminate trash pickups. And I'm concerned also that we're living, 8 miles from the town seat and the sheriff's office. Do we really have so much crime in the village that we need to have a police department? It's just, is there a police department that don't get the trash picked up anymore?
Well,
Okay, so,
can I just one thing for me quick?
Yeah.
Do we have that much crime? That's a matter of your own personal opinion. The report we got tonight from our officer in charge, the most impressive number on here is that in the past month, there was 140 property checks performed by the department. Now, there was 1 DWI arrest, 2 special details, I'm not sure what that might be, 8 criminal complaints, 9 non-criminal complaints, assist to the ambulance, 4 assist to other departments, and, various other things. Whether that constitutes enough to have a department, I can't tell you, that's your own opinion. In my opinion, I like having a department, I think they're an asset to us, and these numbers are, could they be improved and could maybe we make some more money, that's a whole other deal? Yes. stand right now, I'm happy. Do we need to move forward? Again, yes. But that's just a little bit of information I can be on that.
I used to live over in Leon, which was the end of the world, and anytime I needed a sheriff, it was a matter of probably 5 minutes at the most,
Right.
that I had an officer there.
Which, I mean, again, this is my opinion, but that may have been, each, I don't know how many times that was, it may have been once, it may have been 100 times. You may have been very lucky there that nearby. This past summer was involved in initiating, they called the police. Our local officer was able to come, they were on duty. The nearest backup was, I think, Olean or something like that at that time. Now, don't quote me on that, I can't swear to it, and maybe we can look back at the paperwork to find that out. But the point being, it would have been substantially longer. Now, was this a situation where lives were in danger, immediate action necessary? No, probably not. But the response time, the fact of the matter is, because of the nature of it, it was a drunk driving situation, okay? Having a sooner response means you get the record there sooner, you get the individual in custody sooner, It's faster for a lot of things. It's not just about the response time. It's my 2 cents.
I can let you know, I mean, Tom and myself, we're gonna be meeting with, with Ms. McCarthy, on Wednesday.
5:30.
And there is some reconstruction that might be done, we are looking at ways to improve the department to be efficient, both cost and the services that they provide. And honestly, I think, again, it's a matter of opinion, in regards to the police department. We just had the vote, it was substantially 3-1 was in favor for the police department. But yeah, as Tom said, I'll just support that we agree that we can do better with what we have and better management. So, I mean, I would ask that you could come back in another 6 months and say, okay, now what's your evaluation of the police department? What are you seeing? And you can see how, are they doing better at paying for themselves? And stuff like that is what I would encourage and ask for you to do.
And then if you would also, switching to garbage, clarify, you said that you believe 100% of the town creates garbage, but the village has gotten rid of garbage collection.
Yes.
Okay. Understanding that the village is included in the realms of the town, we all create garbage, yes, that's true. That just confused me slightly, I guess. That was something that's been done well before us. That's not recently been brought to a vote, it's not whatever. Having worked previously seasonally in the DPW department, all the stories and this and that, whatever, it was for the village, at my understanding, becoming quite the hassle. I don't know if liability could be a word thrown around there, not necessarily, but liability in terms of cost. There's upkeep on the equipment they had as far as trucks and like that. There's what I do believe would have been overtime pay for the collection workers and everything like that. To look at where we sit right now, budget-wise, tax caps, all these things coming down the line, if it was truly the greatest idea and voted on and whatever to bring garbage collection back, or let's say we're in a position to keep or get rid of it, I'd have to say getting rid of it is somewhere, it's not where you're losing or have lost a service, but there's not the same value in that service as there is in, say, our police department.
Well, the way I look at it is every resident, almost every week, has to drive 10 miles down to the mill, 10 miles back, plus pay $1 to put that.
So you are looking at then.
You don't have to, there is a service that you can pay every 3 months.
There are multiple private contractors, Dave's is one I've heard of them, that will come to your house and you put the cost instead of doing it through taxes.
Right.
To them.
I do
A lot of
know,
people struggle with that in local towns and villages about what's the right balance.
So you're looking for the village to bring back trash pickup, essentially?
Yeah.
I do know, I took my garbage to the dump for quite a while. And with the constant rising of the cost that you spend going to the dump, I find it actually, I mean, I've got a family, you know, with kids. It is actually cheaper for me to pay the gentleman in auto to come pick up my garbage and then I can take it to the dump for it.
Could you, I mean, not to put it in a spot, but a ballpark
I think the
percentage
service I
ownership
have
of
is
that?
$80 for 3 months.
Yeah, it's like
All the
$28
garbage you
a
put out
month
to
or
the
something
road.
like that.
They take it.
$30 a month, I thought. It's, I had to weigh the cost, I mean, for somebody that doesn't have a lot of garbage, you know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for a whole household of, with a family, I can't take it to the county dump for what I can have it picked up.
Are you aware of the private contractors that pick up garbage there?
I've seen some, but I generate generally one bag every 2 blessed weeks, and it's still, what, 12 miles.
Well, this is something though that should be discussed, to see about possibly if the village is able to bring back the trash pickup, but not be held by the DPW, but actually have it be contracted out, just like we do with other services such as sidewalks and trees and all of that, because I know other municipalities are doing such, and also it's a benefit to the community, and it's cheaper than what's being paid at the present time, such as what you guys are doing through your own company, through the guy out of Otto.
Yes, but not for the village. That's the distinction.
Yeah, but even if you had a central dumpster that was picked up once or twice a week, it'd be hell of a lot better for me to drive 2 blocks and put it into a dumpster or 3 blocks.
Yeah, oh,
than
sure.
go all the way down and back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I realize I'm playing a lot of devil's advocate here, but then you run into
I
people
know,
abusing,
Rose, will you
I'm
be able to
sorry.
add on that,
you get to people abusing dumpster, you get,
we need
you know,
to discuss
there is
trash
no simple
pickup?
quick answer.
That's
Right.
something that we can look into.
In the meantime, I believe I'm allowed like, I forget how many bags, 4 or 5, I use 2 or 3 or more, welcome to bring them to my. Take, drop it off from my
You know what I mean?
More than
It's-
happy to take it
yeah.
for you, sir.
But,
Should we
in
get
regards
some-
to get something issued or resolved, this is something that we should look into.
Just to remind you that
Nah.
Gonna run out of
might get
space
a lot
soon.
of bags.
That's a one-time shot, that's a one-time offer right there.
I don't think it was here you need.
I gave just you the okay, sir.
You just gave Lenny the okay.
A one gentleman offer, I guess.
There's one gentleman offer.
That's what she said.
Is there anything else that you have to add?
No, that's the end of my roadblock.
Never taken it
Please
seriously.
be paying attention if you are able to attend the meetings or read the newspapers. Unfortunately, today, we don't have anybody reporting. Or the other bet is if you're able to watch the movies that are posted on YouTube and Facebook and whatever. But this is something that will be discussed further.
Okay.
So please, I don't want you to think that we're just, oh, well, you can use this trap. This is something that I would like to discuss with the board, and maybe even further so with the community about if we're able to do something as such. So,
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, everybody driving that far.
so we'll take it very seriously and appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so long.
You can say behave yourself, so I don't want to be next to you. Good night.
So, finishing up our committees is historian and Pat left, so going up to correspondence. Oh my goodness, okay. CHIPS, the New York State Assembly for CHIPS, there's really nothing to add in regards to that. We have what, 30,000 to spend for CHIPS money this year with the allocations from the disaster relief and all that, but that was sent to
Yeah.
everybody.
29, 35, yeah.
Is it 30 or 35?
Well, it's 29 for actual CHIPS aid, then you've got another 4,100 in winter recovery.
Yeah,
8,400 in incentives. Per capita isn't part of CHIPS. The aid and incentives aid, I believe that might be separate as well, so.
alright, well, hopefully Big John and the DPW will be able to get some stuff done with that. Cattaraugus Fireman's Club liquor license renewal.